All right. So today, I am gonna be talking about the book that I have read for HCOM 200. So the book is called Practical Ethics. Is by Peter Singer. He goes over a lot of just basic, like, kind of just rules you really want to live by, and like ethically, if that makes sense. Um, So pretty much, I got a lot of notes down because I wanted to make sure I was prepared for this and stuff. So I got a few topics to go over. Like, there's a good amount of topics that I got down, and like just elaborated stuff on it. So yeah, just definitely just dive right into it, and we'll talk about it, and I'll give some of my opinions, and we'll see how it goes from there. But so yeah, so first is gonna be first. His first chapter is about ethics, just kind of like introducing it, what is, what is not. For like the is not, um, he pretty much was just talking about. He pretty much was just talking about. He talked about concerning particular with sexuality, impractical. This is going to be consequentialists, including the author, are concerned only with real world effects, defined by religion. Ethical theories need not to refer to religion. So pretty much just saying, like, religion ain't really like kind of related to it. It's not something that you would, it doesn't tie hand to hand. So like if anybody like says anything about like ethics is like religion, no, it's not. It's totally different. But relative and subjective. So for relative, here's an example: X is wrong does not mean my society disapproves of X. Otherwise, all nonconformists moral opinions would be factually incorrect, and the idea of moral progress would be nonsensical. So I mean, that's pretty much self-explanatory. But if you didn't really understand that, so pretty much it means like if you're saying you can't say someone is wrong, and then you can't say that automatically that means society's gonna agree with you, and like that means they're gonna disapprove of it automatically. That you can't just go based off that situation that you had personally with someone that was wrong, and make it relative to the whole real world. Like, that's just not something that ethics is, and it's just just doesn't make sense in a practical ethics world. Subjective, X is wrong does not mean I disapprove of X. If it did, no one could disagree about ethics. Yeah, so I mean that's pretty much self-explanatory. That was like a little note that I had. Yeah, so then now we're into ethics is. It's based in reason. That's pretty self-explanatory. And then universal. So I have like a little pretty fat paragraph right here. So it means universal ethical principles and judgments are the same from all points of views. They do not contain the concept of I, and therefore give equal weight to equal interests, regardless of who holds the interests. This equal consideration of interests leads naturally to a theory of interest utilitarianism, in which ethical judgments are calculation of interest maximization. This book is written assuming an interest utilitarian viewpoint, which the author holds and will not further defend here. The implications of other popular ethical frameworks are also considered in specific cases. Yeah, so yeah, so I mean, he's pretty much just saying, like, everybody has judgments, and everybody has point of views. So you can't really say anything's really based off just you, because there's so many different other opinions in the world, and like you got to take all these other different point of views and judgments and principles and all this into consideration, because yeah, it's a universal thing. It's not just it's not, you can't just say it's just me. No, like ethics is everybody, all different opinions, all different stuff, and we need to, like, everybody needs to combine, and it's just universal. Pretty self-explanatory, universal stuff like that. Now we're going into chapter 2. This is pretty much equality and its implications. So yeah, the basis of inequality. What does it mean to say in moral sense of all humans are equal? So yeah, so I mean, he's not saying. So when he says the basis of equality, he's not saying that everybody is equal. Like, obviously, like, not like height wise, sports wise, athletic wise, whatever, your health, blah blah. That's not what he's talking about. He's talking about what you guys like, equal treatment, like interests, like, so pretty much I have a quote right here. It says principle of equal consideration of interests. So I mean, like, if that doesn't make any sense, like, I'm not very good at like ethical stuff, so I mean a lot of this stuff kind of like it makes sense, but it doesn't hit me too well. um but I mean I kind of just get like a general like kind of an idea. But I mean it just means like, I mean, like, everybody has interests, and like we all should like think about everybody's interests, and that's pretty much the basis of equality. That's kind of like that's kind of like what I'm getting from it. That's what I believe what it's about. But yeah, so I mean that's that. There's a few other things in this chapter that are pretty important. I'll just say the topics. I don't know if I want to really explain it because I'm trying to make sure I can fit everything in here. But there's equality and genetic diversity. You know, that's one. From equality of opportunity to equality of consideration. That's another that he talks about. Affirmative action. All these he talks about equality and disability. Yeah, I mean he pretty much just is explaining like everybody's different, but everybody's the same. Like we should all have the same interests. Like not like we should all consider everybody's interests and make sure that we all are aware of it, and make sure that we try to implement that in our lives, and stuff like that. He pretty much just goes all over all that stuff, all the topics that I talked about, and then we get into chapter 3, and then now it's equality for animals, and it's not just humans. You know, you got to really think about everything else. Like ethics is like everything. Like it's not just us. It's not just a pair of shoes. It's not just, it's everything. Like, I mean, like everything. Like, we got to think about as animals as food, experimenting on animals, other forms of speciesism. But yeah, like, how do we know that animals can feel pain? You know what I mean? They behave in the same way that we do when we have pain. They share our nervous system. He goes over all this stuff like this. Like, there's just so many different things to think about, and like it really has opened my eyes. Like equality for animals, like all this stuff is like pretty crazy. Like I would have never. People don't normally think about this on a daily basis, and it kind of like sucks because like there's so many other things that you need to think about. Like all these like just so many other things, and I'll get into all the other ones, but this one's just equality for animals. That's what that chapter goes over, like just pretty much like saying like, showing their point of view as if they were us, what I mean, kind of like doing stuff like that in that chapter. And he just goes over the differences and stuff like that, and like why we should think about it and all this stuff. But yeah, he goes pretty detailed in that one too, but he has a lot of other stuff. That's why I'm trying to like get through everything. So number 4 is chapter 4. What's wrong with killing? So he says the ethics of taking life is less straightforward than the ethics of suffering. Okay. I have a few little bullet points and stuff like this. So one is human life. A value of Homo sapiens, he says, life, as discussed. Species is not a relevant boundary for ethical judgments, and we should not base our judgments about killing on it. The Western orthodoxy, to the contrary, comes from the influence of Christianity on European civilization. Sorry about that. Okay. The value of a person's life. There's just a lot of these things like they make sense, but he says it like very like ethically, and I kind of I wish there was like a way he could like dumb it more down, just so I could kind of like get it from like a regular human, like if I didn't know anything about ethics, nothing about it, like I'd rather like have a better like way of him saying it. But I mean, like he can't really say that in like a book because he's trying to make it educated and stuff like that. But I mean, like I feel like he should have like another version that'll like kind of like make it easier for just other people to understand, because like some of this stuff is pretty hard to understand, and like I kind of don't even understand a lot of it. But I mean, like a good amount of it, like some of it makes sense to me, and like I take some stuff and will just note it down in my head, and just hopefully I follow it by life and I keep going through it. But yeah, does like he's pretty much going through all this stuff, pretty much explaining like the different aspects of people's lives and like what we should really be thinking about them, and like does a person have a right to life? Killing a person thwarts her desires. Killing a person may make other persons anxious about being killed themselves. You know what I mean? Like it's just he's going over all kinds of different stuff like this. Um, but So pretty much like a quick little summary that I got from it was a reasonable objection. Reasonable objections to killing a person arise from four different theories of the value of life. So it thwarts the person's preferences. It puts other persons in a state of fear. It violates the person's rights to life. It violates the person's autonomy. So pretty much saying killing is not necessary. Like we don't need any of this. We need to start thinking about it from like an ethical point of view, and he's just stating all these different like ethical point of views that he thought were like, you know, that are pretty important. And like honestly, like if you really like read them again and talk about them, like it puts other persons in a state of fear. Like killing people doesn't make you feel safe. Doesn't make you feel safe. The person's gone, but you killed them. You know what I mean? So like it's kind of like you got to think about it at that point. Like how is one supposed to feel safe if you keep killing people? You know what I mean? It's like we should have that eliminated totally. And that was one that really surprised me because like you don't think about it in that way. You know what I mean? You don't think about it like am I safe? Like can that happen to me? Like whoa, like my life is at risk like all the time if like that can happen to me. So I mean like stuff like that go throughout. He talks about in that chapter. He goes about like stuff like that. Chapter 6, taking life, the embryo, and the fetus. He goes in detail on this. This is kind of a little bit more difficult for me to understand, but I'm going to try to... I took down some notes and stuff, so hopefully you guys understand it when you guys, when you guys hear it right now. So he talks about different positions and, like the value of the fetal life and stuff like that, and, like kind of like in lab stuff, like technical stuff, and like puts it all together. Okay, so he talks about liberal and conservative. So I'm gonna say a few things that he says from both, and then we'll go from there. So he says a conservative position is it is wrong to kill an innocent human being, which a fetus becomes at a conception. At what other point could it gain this status? And then the liberal is against the conservative position of all which fail. So they pretty much saying like the liberal outlawing abortion drives it underground. This may be true, but is not argument that abortion is not wrong. And then so like a conservative point that he says is birth. No, since some prematurely born infants are less developed than some unborn ones. So pretty much saying like some develop faster than others and whatnot. And then like for a conservative side, he says viability. No, since the advent of viability depends on the state of medical technology and the mother society. See, like a lot of these, like I wish I understood it more. Like I wish I could understand ethics a little bit more. Like I think like it takes a little bit longer for someone's that does not really think ethically to really start understanding the way that people think ethically, because like sometimes it's just confusing, like the way they be wording it. Like these are just straight notes that I got just straight out of the book, and like I'm just trying to explain it, show that I actually did read it, but like sometimes you just don't understand it. Like I don't, so like that, like that's another point. And then some liberals' arguments would be abortion is a victimless crime. If abortion is murder, this is clearly false. So yeah, so liberals are just pretty much trying to tell them like abortion isn't right and stuff like that, and the conservatives are kind of saying like conservatives try to find like a gap. So trying to gap where like they want to say like it's not living, so it's right. You know what I mean? Like, and the liberals are kind of still like saying like nah, it's not right. Like all this stuff. Like how are you gonna tell me like pretty much just saying all these back stuff. And then now he goes into like value of fetus life, and like he's pretty much saying, I think he okay, I believe he's taking more of a liberal type of side, but he kind of like, so he says, instead of trying to sharply categorize the fetus, we should think directly in morally relevant terms. Interest. If the fetus has interest, such as the ability to experience pain, we should weigh its interest equally with the like interest of any conscious being. Many farm animals are more mentally developed than a late-stage human fetus, and if our interest in a tasty meal outweighs their interest in life, then the strong interest involved in abortion decision may outweigh a fetus' interest in life. See, like, I got a little bit of that. Like, if it experiences pain, then we should equally weigh it out. But, like, how can you, like, for sure tell, So, like, a lot of this stuff he goes into pretty deep. And, like, it's just very, like, confusing if, like, he doesn't dumb it down and, like, stuff like that. But, yeah, he goes into all this other fetus stuff and, like, pretty much the status of the embryo of the lab and fetus as potential life and making use of the fetus. All this stuff just going into it. And then he goes into taking life. Chapter 7 is taking life, humans. So that's kind of relative to the other chapter. He kind of elaborates on this a little bit more, different topics. So I'm gonna let that be. But I just want to let you guys know that was a certain topic. And then he goes off to the rich and the poor. And let me say some facts that he actually mentioned in the book that were actually pretty interesting. Yeah, so approximately 1/4 of the world's population lacks the resources to meet basic biological needs for food, clothing, and shelter. Over 10 million children under the age of 5 die every year from malnutrition and infection. And that's just a fact about poverty. And that's just insane. Like, when I saw that, I'm like, man, like, as a child, I've never thought about ever, like, thinking of malnutrition or not having enough food or stuff like that. So, like, it just hits you when you see the number, 10 million children, like, that's insane. Like, it's just something that's just crazy to think about, you know what I mean? And we should always, like, try to have that in the back of our head and try to hopefully fix it, one day. That'd be amazing. But some facts about wealth. North Americans consume 900 kilograms of grain per capita annually compared to 180 kilograms in poor countries. That's insane. That's like, what, 4 times the number? Like, it's just wild. The difference comes from feeding grain to animals for meat. The world produces enough food to feed everyone. The problem is in distribution of waste. The UN has set an aid target for wealthy nations at 0.7% of GNP. The UK gives 0.31% compared with 5.5% spent on alcohol, and the US gives 0.15%. That's insane. 5.5% is spent on alcohol, and the US only gives 0.15% aid. This is just crazy. Like, it's just wild. Like, how we could think alcohol is more important than other world problems. Like, it's just wild. Like, these numbers are just very just like, what the, like you just start thinking a little bit more. Like, this book has opened me a little bit. Like my mind starts thinking a little bit more. Like, it's just very crazy to, like, really, like, read all this stuff. Like I may not understand all of it, and I'm hoping one day I will. But man, like, some of it you do understand it, and it really does hit. And it's just crazy. But yeah, he pretty much goes into kind of like other different topics in this, and like there's a lot. Like, I don't know. So okay, let me just say the moral equivalent of murder. So we routinely choose to spend money on luxuries. These are notes that I have written down, and like I just have a bunch so I could like have it there, but I kind of have a lot written down, so I'm trying to like think. Like, it might be too long for the video, but we'll see how it goes. We routinely choose to spend money on luxuries instead of giving it to people whose lives it would save. If acts and omissions are morally equivalent, is this equivalent to murder? Examining some relevant differences show that is not, but that is more serious than most of us imagine. Motivation. So he goes to motivation. He talks about motivation, difficulty, certainty, identifiability, responsibility, and he talks about these in detail. I'll say something that I have from each of them. For motivation, by not giving, we do not intend to kill anyone. This is unlike murder, but is similar to the caste manslaughter by a speedy driver who enjoys driving fast and is indifferent to the consequences. Difficulty, it is much easier to avoid murder than to save all the lives we can. This does not make a difference to the consequences, but it does make a difference to how much we can blame people without being counterproductive. Certainty murder is more certain to end a life than save one. This matters, but not giving again. Sense be compared to case of a reckless driver who speeds through crosswalks without caring about the consequences. So he pretty much just says all of these different things about like how murder can relate to all these, and yeah, I mean it's pretty wild. Like all these stuff is pretty intense. So I'm gonna skip the next 3 chapters just because I believe they are not relative. I mean, some people might think. I'll say the topics, but I'm not going to go over them. So insiders and outsiders, we got the environment, and we got ends and means. I just thought he kind of was just elaborating on them and just kind of just going in. I didn't know if that was really something that I would take into life. But the last one was why act morally. And it's just pretty much explaining like why should we all act morally, and so I have so one is he states it as a question in the chapter. If you've seen it, it's like it literally says why act morally with question mark. So what I put, or what I saw, like kind of to understand this question, like this question can be confusing, but if we view a distinguishing feature of ethics as universalizability, requiring us to make judgments from a universal viewpoint instead of favoring ourselves, then this question can be understood to mean what reasons are there for one to think universally rather than selfishly. So pretty much morally means kind of thinking like morally, like, so to dumb that down, like the question really is saying like you can't think about just one. You have to think about everybody. It's universe. Like we're in a universe, you know what I mean? Like morally, kind of like, why act morally? Why don't we involve everybody in the universe and involve universally, like how everybody else would feel about this certain thing, how everybody else would think about this, stuff like that. That's pretty much like what that question is like kind of like trying to get into. And then yeah, he goes into like reason and ethics and ethics and self-interest, and then I thought this was interesting, the has life a meaning. So I'm gonna just say what it has for this. Absent a belief in God, can individuals find meaning in their lives? Most people derive happiness indirectly by striving to achieve long-term goals that are not directed towards their present happiness. These goals give people a sense of meaning. People who strive only for goals oriented toward their own long-term self-interest tend to not be satisfied with these goals are accomplished, but rather find themselves wanting more. One way to achieve a more permanent state of happiness and sense of meaning is to adopt an ethical viewpoint not based on self-interest. A universal ethical viewpoint transcends our fleeting personal desires, and goals associated with such a viewpoint are never exhausted. So pretty much stop thinking like, don't go to life doing the regular stuff that everybody else does, like trying to go for this long term, like I'm gonna get hella money. No, like think about the little things that add up to this and like how it affects other people. This is going to make you happier, and this is going to make you have a better meaning in life. And this was pretty much just wrapping it up, man. Like it's just pretty much just saying like, ethics and morals and just everything goes into having a good, like you want your life to have a meaning. That's what everybody wants, right? So you got to make sure you think about everything else, and everything universally comes into it as one. And this will overall end up just making your overall life just happier, just because like you're not thinking about just one thing, money. Because like if you don't get it throughout the way and stuff's not working out, you're gonna be sad. You're not gonna be happy all the time. If you're thinking about just little things that help this person out, help you out, help your family out, this out, and like it's overall making you grow, like that's gonna equal happiness throughout your whole life, and you're gonna have a meaning for your life, and you're gonna feel like you mean something. This book has been very, very good to me. I thought it was pretty interesting. I may have not explained these topics as well as some people might, but I'm not very good at ethics, and I'm hoping that this makes sense. And I just thought having it written down and stuff would make it easier. But overall the book was pretty good, man. I enjoyed it. I had a great time, and it makes me start thinking a little bit different. It really does open someone's mind, and yeah, it really just gets you thinking, and just in a different way that you never thought you would have, and I'm glad that that we were able to do this and read it, and yeah, thank you for that, and hopefully some of these topics open someone's eyes, and maybe you guys understood it a little bit better than I could have. But yeah, that's it for me. That's it for Practical Ethics. Peter Singer. Bam.